Awesome. Well, I want to welcome everyone to the Women Veterans Alliance. This is a special webinar that we are having, and it's still Women's History Month. And if you didn't hear about it last week, that the VA has changed their mission statement, and that is there on the bottom left corner, where you will see the new motto, mission statement at all of the VAs to be more inclusive of everyone that the VA serves. I'm Melissa Washington. I'm a Navy veteran. I am the CEO and founder of Women Veterans Alliance, and I'd like to welcome you all here today to listen in on our webinar. If you're not familiar with Women Veterans Alliance, we're a nationwide organization, and our primary focus is to connect women veterans with each other and resources, and we do that through our online and in-person networking and events. If you haven't seen this or don't know, that June 12th is Women Veterans Day, and this is a very special Women Veterans Day, June 12th, is because it's the 75th anniversary of the signing of the Armed Forces Service and Integration Act, and we're doing something really cool. So if you like to draw, do graphic design, or you know someone, we're having a logo design competition where you can design a logo specifically for the 75th anniversary, and that logo will go on shirts and cups and stickers. So if that's something that you're interested in, definitely visit our website to find out more information. Please connect with us on all social media. Also to subscribe to our YouTube channel, as this event will be up there, and all of our previous webinars will be there, and of course our future webinars too. So it's a great way if you've got some time to watch some of our other fantastic webinars. If you haven't been to our website, we provide business and career coaching. We have the only online directory for women veteran-owned businesses. You can find resources, our allies directory. We also have a listing of all women veteran memorials and monuments. We have our store, and also too, if you're interested in becoming a Women Veterans Alliance member, if we've got a couple of events coming up pretty quickly. Our first one next month is Women Veterans Engage, April 29th. It's the Resilient You Time to Recharge. This event is available. You can watch it anywhere, so you can register for online. And there are several locations throughout the US that are going to be in person. And then September 8th through the 10th is our signature event, the Unconference. It's our 7th one. We will be back in Las Vegas at the Tropicana Resort. Upcoming webinars, we have our Wednesday webinar series. This is a special webinar we're having today on Thursday, but our Wednesday webinar series, we are going to end Women's History Month with a fantastic presentation by Colonel Edna Cummings about the 688. And if you don't know about these awesome women, you definitely want to tune in on March 29th next week. And then following that, we've got Melanie's going to talk about certification. If you're looking to do business with the government, on how you can get certified. And then we've got Sherry talking about graduating grief, moving from existing and surviving and thriving to living and thriving. And then Jenna's going to talk about change your mind with plant medicine. So we've got a lot of different events happening. And then also too, I host a Women Veterans in Business radio show. You can hear it live Monday, 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 p.m. Eastern. And also too, the link will be available after. So if you happen to miss one of the radio shows, you can listen as well. We got Amanda Huffman, who will be my guest on Monday. And if you are in the San Antonio, Texas area, or if you're coming to VWise, I will be there. And for any of our small business owners that are on the call, just let you know, May 5th, the Small Business Award application opens. And then the 15th and 17th here in the greater Sacramento area, we've got a couple events that we have surrounding June 12th, Women Veterans Day. And if you haven't seen, we've launched veteran.events, where you can find calendar, you can find speakers, and you can find also women veteran conferences. If you're looking for a women veteran or a male veteran speaker, you can visit our directory. And also too, if you are a speaker and you want to be listed on our directory, it's free for our business and lifetime members. And if you're not a member, you should join. But if not, you can get on our speaker directory. So I wanted to get through all that really quickly, because we are here to celebrate our women veteran authors. I'm very excited about this. So before I just want to go really quickly and just share who these wonderful women are, and I'll take this off. Just give me a second after I read all their bios, and we're just gonna talk, and I've got some questions, but I wanted to share first about Ashley Marie Booker Knight. She's an author, an Army veteran, and a positive life influencer. She is the owner of an independent bookstore called Words Unite Bookstore, veteran-owned, women-owned, Black-owned business. And it gives authors a platform to highlight their books in a storefront environment. And what's really cool is, and I should have a picture of your van, your truck. She goes in different locations with her traveling bookstore, and you can find her sometimes at the PX or other. So it's a great way for her to promote other women veteran authors. Of course, she also has her books as well. So I love what she's doing with the Words Unite bookstore and that. And so we'll get to more detail as we continue here. And then our next author is Charlotte Charlie Kimball Hudson. After graduating from Northwestern State University in 1974, she entered the Army through a special program of the Women's Army Corps. Everybody knows them as WACS. 2 years before, the first women were commissioned through a test program and selected College Reserve Officer Training Corps programs. So she's got a lot of firsts here. So I'm going to read all of her first. First female officer assigned in the history of the 19th Maintenance Battalion in Germany. First female selected to command a maintenance company at Fort Campbell, Kentucky. The first female ROTC instructor at Hardin-Simmons University in Texas. The first female to be designated as the executive officer to the commanding general at the U.S. Army Ordnance Center and School. And the first female to command the Leghorn Depot in Italy. A lot of firsts. She's been deployed to Saudi Arabia for Operation Desert Shield, Desert Storm. She retired from the Army in 1995 as a lieutenant colonel. Her first novel, Orchids in the Snow, was written after she retired from active duty. And she's going to tell us all about, she's got a whole series, so she's going to talk about her books. And then she also has her first book, nonfiction, The Parent's Guide to Business Travel, Practical Advice and Wisdom for When You Have to Be Away. And that's Charlie. So you're going to hear all about her Shades of Truth series. Graciela was our other author that we were going to celebrate. If you know her, this lady is all over the place. She is promoting her book. She is in aviation. She's a very in high demand speaker. But I did want to share a little bit about Graciela. She's a highly decorated military veteran, bilingual STEM consultant to K through 12 school districts, sought after speaker on environmental entrepreneurship leadership. She's the author of a 5-time award-winning book. She was also honored by the White House as a military veteran leader champion of change in 2014, graduated UC Berkeley School of Environmental Design, and the best-selling bilingual children's book, Good Night, Captain Mama, first bilingual children's book about why mommies serve in the military. And she has a second book, The Captain's Mama Surprise. And she's got some other books there out there as well. So definitely want to learn more about this amazing woman who's so amazing and she's busy. She wasn't able to make the call. All right. So last woman of excellence here. Sean Barnwell spent 25 years active duty with the United States Air Force, rising to the rank of Chief Master Sergeant. Her responsibilities include project management, human resource utilization, process improvement, logistics, and consulting. She deployed in support of Operation Southern Watch in Bahrain, Operation Iraq Freedom in Iraq, Operation Enduring Freedom in Afghanistan, retiring in 2014. She has served as a business and industry services specialist at Central Georgia Technical College, developing and deliver on-demand contract training across 9 countries. She first published her book, Leadership is About Behavior, Not Titles, in 2021. I know she's also a speaker. She's a mentor, lecturer, and she also has her own event business, Sean Barnwell Events. So let me stop sharing my screen so we can see these awesome women here and talk to them, and y'all, you can learn more about these women here. So I'm going to start with you, Ashley.
Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Thank y'all.
Yes.
Thank y'all so much for joining us.
Yes. So tell us where are you at? I know, and I know I'd already asked you this question because
Yes.
you're a lot of times you're in your van and going to different pop-up events and having the book. So where are you
Yes.
located?
So I live in the Fort Hood, Killeen area. So out here in Texas, I am originally from Houston, Texas, so it's only 3 hours away from home. So this is home for me. And Fort Hill was my last duty station after I served in the Army.
And what did you do in the Army?
I served as a 92 Yankee. So all my quartermasters out there, quartermasters who support the victory. So I served as a quartermaster, supply sergeant. I did a couple things as a contracting officer. Later on, when I became a staff sergeant, as well as a PBO, and networking, which is why I think I do what I do so well, because it's all about, connecting. I get to meet the whole unit because, when you go to your supply room, that's one person you got to be nice to, one of the people to be nice to. But everyone comes through the supply room, to in process. So I get to meet them when they come in, I get to meet them when they go out. And that has truly been a blessing, especially being here at Fort Hood, because coming into AAFES and partnering with AAFES with my bookstore, many of those individuals from my units have been my customers.
Awesome. Awesome. And we'll talk more about that too, because there may be other women looking to do what you've done there at AAFES. So let's go over to Charlie. I read all your firsts. Amazing what you have done and trailblaze and and pick down those doors for all the other women that have followed you. So I already kind of did share about things, but want to just share what you did and kind of maybe a highlight of your very vast career.
Well, thank you, Melissa. I hope everybody can hear me okay. Having internet issues here, but and it's wonderful for the opportunity and great to meet everybody else. And so the situation was, I refer to myself when I do presentations as an inadvertent pioneer. And what that comes down to is I joined, in fact, I was in one of the classes that was as the Women's Army Corps was transitioning into the regular Army. And so we went to, I did in fact go to Fort McClellan. I somewhere still have my little Palace Athena. And so then when we finished at Fort McClellan, we went on to our respective branches. And at the time, the Ordnance Corps didn't have very many women, and so they were trying to bring women in. And so I actually went to Aberdeen Proving Ground, Maryland, and that's where I was trained in all things of in maintenance. That's predominantly for wheeled and tracked vehicles type thing. And then I went on to Germany, and it was again, I was the first female officer they had. They didn't know what to do with me, so they put me in personnel, which of course I hadn't been trained for. But then one thing just led to the other. And so throughout my career, I happened to be in positions, and that's why I say inadvertent. I happened to be in positions that women hadn't held before. It wasn't always an easy thing for them to decide to put me in those positions, but they did, and it all worked out. And so that's just kind of how it went.
Thank you. Oh, thank you for sharing that. All right, Sean.
Right.
Oh, and Charlie, real quickly, where are you located?
Oh, we're down way South Florida, Homestead, Florida. It's the last part of the mainland before you get into the Florida Keys.
All right. All right, Sean. I know where you're at. You can share everybody where you're at and what you did in the military.
Greetings, everyone. So I'm in Middle Georgia, a little city called Warner Robins. That's about 30 miles south of Macon, about an hour and a half south of Atlanta. So when I first started my career with the Air Force, I was supply. So yes, without supply, you can't fly, and you definitely have to be nice to us. And I did that for 10 years. And then the Air Force decided they wanted to do this gigantic realignment, and they went to regional supply centers and things like that. And so I retrained into a career field that we call manpower, which is a mix of industrial engineering and Six Sigma on steroids. And so I did that until I was promoted to chief. And then of course you just manage stuff at that level. So I retired as a force support superintendent at Robins Air Force Base. And we're just responsible for just everything people, retention, recruitment, welfare, morale. You come on a base, and usually there's at least 70 things that you can touch that belong in the force support arena, from childcare to ID cards to the bowling centers and fitness centers to where you get your meals to lodging. I mean, it's a host of things. So just part of the team that took care of all the people that run those operations, and then of course, military folks and retirees. And then I decided I wanted my life back in 2014. So I retired and still trying to figure out what I want to do when I grow up. But event planning is one of those things. And then becoming an author and a publisher, having my own publishing company fills my days. So
Awesome.
excited to be here. Thanks everyone for your time and attention.
Thank you. And we'll talk a little bit more too about publishing.
Mhm.
So Ashley, I'm gonna go back to you. What was that moment that, like, oh my gosh, or I'm gonna write a book, or was it one of those things where I'm gonna write a book and then a year goes by? You know, what was it? What was it that you said, you know what, I want to put a book out and I want it to be about this, and why about that?
Okay, well, definitely it was all about life. So in the season of life that I was in, I do know about authorship. My grandma was an author, so we come from a family of authors. So my grandma was the first author in our family. She published a book in 1996 called Don't Give Up, instilling that positivity in me. But trust me, as I grew up and went through life and went through my military career, that positivity was not there. It did not exist. On some days, I could not see it. I could not find the tunnel vision to walk in the positive lane. But it was when I met a 10-year-old author who had published 3 books, and her name is Jay Simone, author Jay Simone. She's actually one of the Women Veteran Alliance's dependent. She's a child of Lila Holly with Camouflage Sisters. And this 10-year-old had written 3 books, and I had all these books in me that I was journaling. I'm a journaler. I've always been able to at least like write out my thoughts. Back in the day, I used to call it release my mind time. So I've always journaled. But when I met her, I was like, yo, you're wasting your time. You are not utilizing your skills. You already know a little bit about going into the publishing field, but get acquainted with the here and now, because 1996 to the 2000s is a totally different realm of publishing, even to now, because I started back in a system called Create Space before they had all the spaces that they have now. And it's been a definite transition. So meeting that 10-year-old, she inspired me. She's now in college doing great things, about to be graduating as a senior now. But she ignited my passion, and then I wrote as a co-author in my first book. So I just wrote a chapter. That kind of helped me know the process. After writing a chapter in an anthology, then I started writing solo books.
Right. Charlie, same question as far as when did that come to your mind? Why write these books that you're writing, and you have like a whole like series?
Well, actually, that's relatively simple. I always wanted to be a writer. I mean, we're talking from like, 9 to 10, whatever, but I didn't want to be a starving writer. Okay. That's what it came down to. And my family was not in a position, to where they could support me while I went off and did something like that. And so, like I say, I had always wanted to. And then, of course, in the military, as I moved up in different things, I did obviously military writing with articles and white papers and presentations and things, but I always wanted to do a novel. And actually, interestingly, the novel that I always had in mind, I've never written, but that's another story. So anyway, as I was coming up on retirement, my husband, who was just a wonderfully supportive man, just great, we made the decision. He came in and he said, okay, it's time. You need to take the time and write that book. So we were being reassigned. He was still on active duty. He also was retired Army, and he was going for his Pentagon assignment. And so we took, he said, look, I'm not even going to look for another job. I'm going to take time and write the first novel. That actually was Orchids in the Snow, which was about military wives. And then as I go along, so I have literally been writing, well, not last couple of years, but ever since 1995, which is when when I retired, I have either been writing a novel or a nonfiction book, or sometimes both, almost every single year. And in fact, I have 3 different series. I have some standalones, I have some nonfiction, I've co-authored a couple. And so the Shades series, we are in Homestead because it's close to Key Largo, which has great scuba diving. And my husband, in fact, teaches scuba and does photography and helps write for the paper. And so the Shade series, that's one of my scuba themed mysteries. And so it's Shades of Truth, Shades of Gold, Shades of Deception, about a female police detective in the Florida Keys who scuba dives along with being a female police detective. And so then there's a spinoff character that I did a series of that's also scuba themed. And then I have a quilting, what's called a cozy series that I've done. So and then like I say, some others sprinkled in there, and that's the way it worked. And so the first one came out in 1996.
Thank you for sharing that. Great. Sean.
So yes, so my first business was the event planning business, and under the event planning business, I also did consulting and on-demand training, and I still do. So I was with a company doing a workshop, a 2-day workshop for emerging leaders at this company. And at the end, the attendees said, okay, Ms. Barnwell, well, where can we find your book? So, we can keep sharpening our saw and doing all this great stuff in the leadership environment as new supervisors. And I had to tell them I didn't have a book. And so whenever I do a workshop and people have a takeaway or a call to action, I always say that's your homework. And when I told them I didn't have a book on leadership, then they all told me that was my homework. And so scoot along, go on with life. And then COVID hit. And of course, the hospitality industry just came to a screeching halt. So I wasn't planning any events, retirements, family reunions, just nothing. And so I had all this time and I said, well, you know what? I think I'll just I started with just trying to map out what I would write about. And my husband's like, well, you got to find something to do. Otherwise you're going to drive me crazy because you don't have enough stuff to do. And so I would always say, as military women, we tell our stories to each other, but we don't share them with the world enough. And so I said, okay, I'm going to write something and I'm going to do it. I'll do mine on leadership. So I reached out to people that I had supervised or mentored in some capacity or worked with as a peer. And I asked them to share 3 leadership traits that I possessed that helped them reach their next big thing. And so when all of that feedback came in, the top 9 traits that had the highest votes or tallies, if you will, became the 9 chapters of the book. And I use the number 9 because that's the pay grade for Chief Master Sergeants in the Air Force. And so I just brought the book together that way. And I designed it because it's an easy read, airplane read, but I wanted something that the moment an individual reads the book, they can apply what they're learning. And so it was done from the standpoint of whether you are a college student, first-time leader, emerging leader, or even if you've been in the seat a while in this leadership arena, there's always things we can do to freshen up and learn, refresh our mindsets on different things. And I wanted it to also be a tool. And I use it at workshops, but people can use it in learning circles. They can use it in their sections or offices for training, reinforcement, and just something that helps people just perform better. No one shows up not wanting to do a great job as a leader. Usually fear holds them back. And then the other side of it is they're not prepared. It wasn't until I separated or retired from the military that I guess I took for granted the level of professional development that we receive in the military. And it wasn't until I transitioned that I realized that a lot of industries aren't very intentional and that type of personal and professional development. So the book is designed also to be a resource and a tool for that. And companies that reach out to me, that's how they use the book in their learning circles and professional development arenas.
Fantastic. And you brought up a great point too about being a speaker and having a book. 'Cause I published 2 books myself, and it's great to be able to have that book to sell or at the back of the room, right, for the book. So now let's go into the next question I have. Self-publish or publisher? And if you could go back to when you started this whole process, what would you do differently? And Ashley, start with you.
Yes, it's I would say from my point of view as a bookseller, it's all about your budget to start off. So you got to really think about, how much you want to invest in your publishing avenue is how I think of it, because many people say they want to write a book and they think they can't because of whatever reasons, but you can self-publish a book for free and don't have to pay for anything until you start printing books, until you start actually, binding and printing, unless you get someone to do your illustrations or your book cover that you want specially designed. But from cover to print, you don't have to spend anything. You can write for free. You can spend that time creating your book for free. You're just investing your time, and then you can you can launch your book in pre-sales and have people buy it, and you didn't spend any money. You can use that pre-sale time, meaning you sell your book once you've printed it or published it or inserted it into your database, and then utilize that as your budget. So I always tell people, what's your budget, because that's going to really determine but how far you want to go with your publishing product, your published entity. Publishing companies can help you with that. So it's better if you have a team to push it out there, because self-published or independent authors really have a hard time getting their books on different platforms, but it's all about how you market yourself too. So it's a double question, because it's all about marketing or what's your initial investment. But I did both. I self-published and I use publishing companies. I have a team of publishing companies now that help with the bookstore, because every time I'm at the bookstore, that's what the main question is. I want to publish my book. How can I can't take everybody's project, and I only help you self-publish. So that's why I like to utilize publishing companies to help them publish that book, but that's going to cost them, So I would say figure out what your initial investment into your project would be, and then you'll know which way to go.
All right. So, and what would you what if you could give yourself any advice that day that you started? Whether advice or you've done differently?
My first book, I don't even like to look at it. So, definitely get an editor. Number one, don't edit your own books. That was what my first book's trauma was, after selling hundreds of them. And then I'm like, yo, that booger is not readable. But I self-published, and I did it that route where I can actually publish it myself. So getting an editor, I would tell myself to have somebody else proof it, get the help that you can get, increment it in any way that you can, get some help.
Absolutely. All right. Charlie, self-published, publisher, both. And what would you tell yourself back in the early 1990s before you got out your first book?
Well, I very much agree with Sean. I mean, what it comes down to is it's so very difficult for an independent to, finding an agent is as difficult as finding a publisher, et cetera, et cetera. And so I did finally go with my initially with self-publishing, and she is absolutely correct about an editor. That is a classic mistake that so many authors make. You have to have a professional editor. That's just all there is to it, And then if you can afford it, also a professional designer for cover and so forth and so on. Now, I have been published through niche publishers for a few of my books, and but like I say, I predominantly self-publish, and I've gotten it down. I'm kind of the same way. I mean, when you keep doing this, you have different you learn different things and you get it pretty well. So I've got it pretty well honed, And the one thing part of what drove it, in fact, it was Shades of Truth that did it. When I gave up on traditional publishing, that book, it was working its way through a mid-sized press, a well-known decent press. It had to go through 4 levels of approval, and it made it up to the 4th level. That took 19 months. And at the 4th level, the response was, well, you know, there's a lot of books set in Florida, and I'm just not sure this one is unique enough. Have a nice day and good luck, you know. At that point, I said, okay, that's it. I'm done. And so once you self-publish, then you can go, and I have since then been with a couple of niche publishers for some things, but again, it's a hard crossover. So that's what I would say, and what I would do if I could go back, and I've thought about that so many times, you know, I thought about so many times, if I could go back, and there was, in fact, I was not aware of it, but when we were in the Washington, D.C. area, and there was a writers group that I didn't find out about till later. If there is a writers group around, that can be a big benefit. Now, not always, okay, but in this particular case, it really would have been. So I would strongly encourage that, but I mean, check them out, you know, so that's what I would say to anybody who's starting out.
Awesome. So Sean, same question. What would you tell yourself? And then self-publish or publishing, and then you can also expand, because too, and also with being a publisher as well. So I'm assuming why you became a publisher.
Right. So definitely. So, okay. On this one kind of makes my blood boil a little bit and for various reasons. So on the publisher or self-publisher. So I started on the self-publishing track because I develop on-demand training, and I really wanted my company as the umbrella to control and protect my intellectual property. And when I needed to change things, I could do that, and I didn't have to go through all these layers of people to make those updates. I would control that. So I knew out the gate, so I was going to do all this work to write a book. The publishing company was part of that. So in that process, a friend found out about it, introduced me to someone who did PR, who was once not so much a literary agent, but worked with literary agents. She did the PR piece of publishing. And so she's like, oh, Sean, you're badass, and I like your idea. I need to introduce you to some publishers. And so big box publishers, there were 8 of them. I met with all 8 of them. And it didn't take long before I realized that I was going to be a number. They were going to work on my project for a few months. They were going to put my project on the shelf. They were going to go to someone else. They're going to pull their project off the shelf, work on it for a few months, put it back on. And I was going to be in this cycle. But you have to understand, when I started this process, I had money infused in this because I was building a business. And so when I was speaking with these people in, let's say, September of, what year was that? Of 20, they were telling me maybe my book would be ready for pre-sale in 10 months. And I'm like, oh, the devil is a lie. I'm not waiting that long. I need to get money moving. And so I got off that publisher, big box publisher realm. And I said, okay, no, I'm taking this back. I reached out to a friend, I should call him a coach mentor that I met through the Institute for Veteran Families. What is it? IVMF, Institute for Military Family. Y'all know what I'm talking about, IVMF. Okay. And I asked him, you know, I was a little shy because, I mean, this man's a millionaire. And so I said, I don't know, but I really need to talk to him and just pick his brain for about 15 minutes. So I reached out to his executive assistant and said, hey, can I get on his calendar for like 10 minutes? I can send you my questions ahead of time. He just wants to write it out and send it back to me. That's fine. And she said, no, he's fine. Got on this call. And this is what he told me. He said, Sean, you are industrious enough to do this yourself. He said, you're going to have to create the marketing strategy anyway. You're going to have to come up with the plan. You're going to have to let them know what your base is for people you're going to sell this book to. Who's your target audience? He said, you're doing all that work. why just hand over all the profit? And after that phone call with him, and we talked about a few opportunities for strategy, I said, you know what? Yep, I'll pull it back in. So I'm very glad that I kept ownership. And another thing, too, the contracts that you have to sign with some of the publishers. Sometimes you keep the ownership of your book. Sometimes it's like a tiered effort. When your sales get to a certain point, you get ownership back after they get their money back. I just didn't want to get caught up in that. And so I took it back and I just got back on my own self-publishing track. Now, I say pay for the best talent that your budget can afford at the time you're going through the process. This is one of those, if it's free, is not for me. I promise you. Because if I come across one more person who's written a book that's got a bestseller ribbon on it and no page numbers on the book or running head, I'm gonna scream. That editing, oh my goodness, that editing, I don't listen, husband, wife, daughter, sister, brother, cousin, aunt, uncle. No, you want someone who's in the business for editing to edit your book. They're going to see things that lay people aren't going to see. My husband is not going to tell me I've misspelled 20 words because he don't want to hurt my feelings. I don't need someone who's trying to protect my feelings. I need someone who wants to get me across the threshold of delivering a product that's worthy of having my name on it. Pay for that. Okay. And then I tell people, consider your audience. I knew when I wrote my book, my number one client in my marketing strategy was colleges and universities. And in order to have your book in academia or on certain bookshelves, if you want to be at the airport, Hudson Books, you have to have a very high energy, high resolution graphic on your book. It has to catch people's attention when they can't see the title and your name. You want them to see it and just go beeline from the corridor of the airport into that bookstore and say, oh, I got to have that. What's that? You got to grab them. And so you have to pay for things like that unless that's your will well and you have talent in graphic artistry. So I say pay for the best thing that your budget will allow. Don't cut corners because you're going to pay for it later on when you try to make updates and you're trying to get in certain circles. And, you know, people won't say, well, Sean, you know, the graphic really isn't that hot. They'll just say, oh, well, you know, you probably won't hear from them. They'll just fade off. Now, the one thing that I would have done differently, I did create a marketing plan for the book. But what I didn't do is I should have brought a group of people together to share that plan with, because as I got out and mingled with people and talked with people, I realized there were populations of folks who could use my book that I had never thought about. So my husband is a teacher. I didn't realize that school teachers, at least here in Georgia where we are, they do not have a formulated training and professional development plan. You either get a great mentor that's a teacher that teaches you how to lead and develop in the classroom, or you just fly by the seat of your pants and you fake it till you make it. And then the first organized entity that bought my book in bulk were principals of schools, and they were nowhere on my radar in my marketing plan. So I would say develop your marketing plan yourself, but don't be like me and keep it in a silo. Put together a group of folks, maybe 5, 6 folks, different professions, whatever, and just pick their brain. And based on the circles that they've traveled in, I think you'll be surprised at the value that they offer you on who you can also market your book to.
All excellent, excellent points. So with that, where can we find your book? Or if you have a website, definitely, if you can, ladies, make sure you put that in the chat so people can find your book. They can also find the book also too in the Women Veterans Alliance store. We do carry books by authors as well with that. So what I'd like to do is, because we've got about 15 minutes left, and I know I know a lot of these ladies out here on the call here, some of them are also authors and publishers, but I would like to open it up if they like to ask any questions. If you can, just raise your hand, the chat, and who you would like to ask the question to. Anybody? And hopefully everybody can see the chat and looking there. And if everybody,
I
then-
can't figure out how to raise my hand officially, but here I am.
Hey, Don, there's a,
Hey.
there's a publisher.
So I see we have a lot of Army and Air Force. Do we have any Navy?
Just
Okay.
me.
I'm sorry, Melissa. Sorry about that. Oh, and Valerie. Okay, cool. I have been trying to get into the Navy system, like BX, PX, whatever they call it, whatever y'all call it, the AFES
NEX.
equivalent. Yes, NEX. And getting people to return phone calls is next to impossible for me. Do
Do
you
you
guys
have
have any
access?
hints?
Do you have access to the installation?
Oh yeah, and I've gone and I left notes and I've left copies of books and I've pounded on their door. I was stationed on a Navy base. I
Well,
went
this-
on a regular basis.
This is a great Ashley question because she visits, she has a lot of pop-up stores at a lot of AFES locations.
I do a lot
Yeah.
of AFES. AFES is really good. As far
Yes, you
helping
find
me
that service manager, and usually somewhere in the hallway, there's an advertisement and the point of contact for the AFES service manager because they do all the concessions.
Yeah, AFES is easy. I think AFES is
Oh,
a piece of
but you're
cake.
talking the
NEX.
Ashley,
Yeah.
have you done the Navy base at all?
So I've only been able to get feedback from Hawaii's NEX. And so it's not just you, just to get you out of that bubble. It's not just you, but the NEX's system is like the Pentagon. Like there's all these I'm saying it's more documentation and there's more certification and there's more approval. And I don't know if you've been to I mean I know you said you were on an NEX, but I can just speak on the Hawaii one in general. So you know they're like staying put, and so they kind of want longevity. They do short term, but from the guy that talked to me the last time, it was the documentation and it was the approval part, and they're not as easy as AFES because you know AFES. I feel like AFES gets it because they want small businesses to be in the room. But the NEX is kind of like wanting the established businesses, like most AFES, they're a contract, right? You get a contract to be in that storefront. That's kind of how the NEX is with their documentation. But once I've been able to complete their documentation, get approved with their documentation. But like I said, the only one that I talked to is Hawaii, and I gotta have a budget to go there. So once you
go.
get your documentation, yeah, okay, there we go. Once you get your documentation done, then you should be able to schedule dates. And that's something, if they don't talk to you on the phone, you gotta go in person. And even in that in-person action, they're in their office sometimes, so they gotta schedule something with you.
I've been
So-
trying to get into Norfolk for ages.
So
Norfolk,
I think-
Virginia?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Dawn, I would just say I have had absolutely no luck whatsoever, and I've gone through quite a few avenues. So I actually just gave up because, you know, return on investment when I'm spending all this time for it just, but I don't give up easily. But I was going to say Rosie's, why can't I remember the name of that group right now?
Rosie Network.
Yes, the Rosie
Yeah,
Network.
Rosie Network.
She has a program. If you're not a member, you may want to check into that, where they are helping people get into exchanges. I mean, it's a process, and you have to do a number of things, and but you may want to check out her site.
Thank
So
you.
let me ask you this, ladies, for those of you in the DMV, have you tried maybe contacting like the service manager at, I don't know, Joint Base Bowling, Anacostia, and speaking with that person and seeing if they could mentor you or help you create a relationship with that NEX counterpart? Because they have to know each other, I would think.
Hmm.
I personally have never tried to make the jump from AFES to NEX. I haven't tried to make the connection because it's set up so totally different.
Yeah, it's a
If-
different system.
Yeah, for those of you that are authors, if you sign up with AFES, You sign, you do the paperwork, and it covers you for all the AAFES across the
all
United
over the world, right?
and it's wonderful. They do such a fantastic job. NEX, not so much. Okay, but I took all your notes. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
So
Yeah,
And
please,
the
please
answer is
email
email
no, I
me because I'm
haven't.
gonna send you my list.
yeah. So that way everybody understands as far as when we're talking about AAFES, it's not getting your book in the store to sell, it's for you to be physically at the kiosk or at the location. So just clarification so everybody understands. Because I've been authorized to sell at AAFES too. I've had the pop-ups, and I also do training on the base for, I do LinkedIn training and other training. But I couldn't sell my book in that class unless I was cleared by AAFES to sell books. So, but just some other little tips out there as well. And if anybody cracks the NEX, definitely let me know so I can get that word out. And also the Marine Corps Exchange as well. It's another one.
And Coast Guard, if anybody's
And-
got a.
Yep. They have little one. Great. Any other questions, comments, ways hey, Val, I know what's the writers, the association?
Military Writers Society of America. I'll put it in the chat, and I
Okay.
see at least 3 members here on the group, and Dawn is very active. And if any of you haven't seen her presentation on the Military Writers Society of America, I'll put the website on there. She has a great 4 section series on what to do before you put your book out, and talks about all the things that you want to make sure you get right and the things you don't want to do. So anyhow, and it's free, and you don't have to be a member. So
Thanks for the plug.
so yes, I'll put that in the chat now. And it's not just women, it's women, men, family members, caregivers, people who just like to write about the military. And it's not an actual writing group per se, like that meets weekly or anything like that, but it's a book awards program, book review program, and annual conferences and in between trainings like those Zoom sessions.
And there's another group too, for writers, military authors. It'll come to me if anyone knows. I know there is the military and journalism piece that's a little bit different.
Can I go ahead and put in a plug for Sisters in Arms, which is going to be coming out in June? It's an anthology that we put together for women veterans who are telling their stories about lessons learned while they were in the military, trying to encourage and inspire new people coming on.
Congratulations.
So
Hey.
Thanks. I'm excited.
Awesome. And you got a grant. Was that the project you got a grant for?
It is. I got a grant. Blue Dragon Publishing, which is my company, got a grant through Peninsula Federal Credit Union. And the idea of the grant was to further your business. And I chose to take that grant and spend it on creating this book, the Sisters in Arms book. I got it while I was at last year's Virginia Women's Veterans Summit. And I posted in the notes earlier, they've just announced the date for the 2023. It's going to be June 12th at the Richmond Virginia Women's Memorial. And I'm going to be a moderator at one of the panels, I think.
Awesome.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
Great. We got a few more minutes. Does anyone want to ask questions or share some other resources or ways to connect and help everybody further what we're all doing?
I will just share like with, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just going to say, so Ashley, I saw your note about following your Facebook page, which I'm following, but how do we connect with you about getting our books in your store? Just go to your website. Is there something to fill out or?
Yes, so through that same Facebook page, you can contact me. I'm gonna add my email. I found the NEX contact, so I'm trying to do that right now.
Okay.
So I'm gonna put that in the chat, and then I'll put my email in the chat. But yeah, if you can email me, it's a membership or it's an annual fee process of consignment. So everything that I sell I give 80% back to the author, but I take 20%. So I'll let everybody know that it's the best deal you're going to get, because
Yeah.
everyone knows, you know, Amazon and all the other entities, they do take larger cuts. So I try to give it in a reasonable amount, but I am full-time on feeds as well as pop-up events. So I feel like it's a great opportunity if authors want to take the pledge and do it. But yes, if you are a publisher or an author, if you email me, I can send you the information on adding your
Great.
books to the store.
Okay, thank you. I will do.
And Dawn, did you add your information too? Because you got your publishing, and then Sean, you've got your publishing.
Yeah, I added mine in the chat.
Thank you.
Right. So yes, I'll type my email in there. I will tell everyone, anyone who reaches out to me, I tell them, gone are the days where you'd be able to send me a manuscript and say, Sean, get this across the finish line as a published project. So my approach is to teach people how to fish. And so I usually do typically 1 or 2 complimentary calls. We just talk about what the person is interested in. And then I send them an email with some homework and a guide, because I partner with BookBaby, and on how they can publish their book. And then I tell them, hey, if I never hear from you again, if the next time I hear from you, you're sending me a link that says, Sean, my book is done, please buy a copy, I will. But I do offer coaching, because I think, again, people remember what they do. And so I personally don't have the time to do all of that. And so it was mentioned, you know, pay for people who have the expertise you don't have. So I think that's a good way to go for folks. And of course you want to save, you know, money where you can, and just be conscious of that. But this is something that's going to be forever out in the world. And so I think it's worth just taking that time, even if you got to go baby steps, to not take shortcuts along the process. But I do a complimentary session for about 30 minutes, and then I send you homework, and then we go from there. But I do it in a way that you really, if you're industrious, you can run the whole process yourself, because, and then I give you ideas for marketing. So you have this book, and even if you don't start a publishing company from that book, as Melissa said, you can do speaking engagements and put yourself in that circle. You can do workshops, you can develop courses. I know people that do bundles of packages where they have a seminar, and then people can come and pay for courses on different things. So there's a lot that you can do with it, depending on where you want to be and how much time you have to put into the effort. But at the end of the day, I just want to salute everyone that's either have written a book or a volume of books or thinking about writing a book, because it's important for us for the world to hear our stories from us and not from someone who think they know what we've been through. So I salute each of you for committing your time, talent, and tenacity to sharing your story.
Thank you for that. I'm also too, I put a link into the Goodreads. So for those authors, you hope you are on Goodreads, and you can add your book to the best books written by women military veterans on there. So it's a great list that keeps on building.
Mhm.
I think it's over 100 now. But we know there's more women out there, but it's a great resource too for me to point people that are looking for specifically for women veteran authors, besides coming to our store, but also to get connected there as well. So we got a couple minutes left. Charlie, any parting words you would like to share?
Well, like I say, I appreciate the opportunity, and great. This is some great information, and absolutely will be reaching out to some folks. And like I say, please go onto my website. I post the first chapter of all my books on my website, because we've all done that. You know, you think you might like a book and you're not sure, and you get it and you go, but after you've read the first chapter, you know if you're going to enjoy it or not. So that's Charlie that's www.charliehudson.net.
Great. Right, that's a great marketing tool, right? Share your first
Mhm.
chapter, and if they
Right.
want more, they'll buy it. It's great. Ashley,
Show up. I mean, collaboration. You got to show up to present it to different audiences. Like Sean said earlier, sometimes we don't know or don't think of the other individuals that might want our reading material or might need our reading material. And as we learned with the pandemic, that changed who we were. Life and seasons of our life change, who we are and what we're looking for. And so show up in those different rooms because you never know who you might reach.
thank you. Sean,
I'm just gonna say, ladies, stay impactful. I'm proud of each of you and look forward to seeing you as we crisscross the country or the globe in future circles. So congratulations.
fantastic. Thank you all. And I definitely want to do more of these. So I'm thinking, once a quarter, we'll get other women veteran authors to share their stories. Because as you can see, it's a diverse group of women diversity, but also the topics and the content. It's which we need to share, and others need to see this too. And this was open to anyone, so you didn't have to be a woman veteran to attend this. And we want to continue to bring you all forward as we need to do that. So again, I thank you all. This is recorded, so you all get the link once I get it up to YouTube, and all of you make it a beautiful rest of your day or evening.
Thank you,
Later.
Melissa.
Thanks,
Appreciate
Melissa. We
it.
appreciate you.
Yeah.
Bye.